Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi. Zevachim Daf Lamed Beis. We begin the new Perek, the new Mishnah, Daf Lamed Aleph Lamed Beis, 5 lines off the bottom. Says the Mishnah, Kol HaPesulin, all those individuals who typically are not allowed to engage in hakrava of a korban. For instance, you have a non-kayin, you have a woman, you have an eved, you have a tamei. But for shchita, they're allowed, they're authorized to do shchita. Anybody can do shchita. Kol HaPesulin sheshachtu. So all those individuals who are unqualified for hakrava in general, who proceeded and shechted the korban. Shchita is kshera. The shchita is perfectly valid. Now, why does the Mishnah sound like it's b'di'evid, reluctantly kosher, and not lechatchila, that it's recommended? We'll see in the Gemara. In any case, their shchita is valid, and the Mishnah explains why. Shashchita, because you're meant to know that the act of shchita is kosher, is acceptable, regardless of who does it. Vazarim, non-kohanim, uvenashim, women, uvavadim, slaves, uvatmeim, even those who are impure. Even if the shchita pertained to a korban of the highest degree, highest level, provided you have to ensure that the tamei fellow, after he does the shchita, will not touch the flesh of the korban and make it tamei. So by extension, the fact that they're authorized to do shchita, if they should have an invalid thought of, shalai lishma, chutz lazman, pigel, right? They will invalidate the korban because since they're authorized to be involved in the shchita, their thought process impacts the korban as well. Continues the Mishnah. However, that's limited to the shchita. But step 2, which is the kabbalah sadan, the collection of the blood in the vessel, for that they're unqualified, in which case, v'chulan, all these individuals, shekiblu es hadam, perhaps they did proceed to the second stage and do kabbalah, but they did it with a deficient thought. Chuslas manoi, chuslim kaimai, planning on processing the korban at the wrong time, the wrong place. Does it adversely impact the korban? The answer is no, because they have no business doing this ma'asa kabbalah. So it's not impactful. And in fact, if you can find more blood back in the korban, if you can find more dam hanefesh, primary life force blood, then redo it. Let a qualified kohen go back, recollect the blood, and proceed from there. Continues the Mishnah. Let's say it was done properly. Kibel HaKosher, a qualified kohen, collected the blood. But not an apostle, for some reason, he handed it to a fellow standing next to him who happened not to be a kosher. Does it invalidate the process? No. Yachshel the kosher, let him give it back to the kosher and proceed from there. Another example of this halacha is kipel bi'minoi. Suppose he did kabbalah with his right hand, as per requirement, v'nasan l'smailoi, then passed the container to his left hand. No harm was done. Yachshel limina, just give it back to the right hand, and proceed from there. Third example of this halacha, and the Gemara will explain why we need 3 examples of the same halacha. Kibel kli kodesh. He did the kabbalah with a proper kli shares. V'nasan kli chal, then pour the blood into a mundane kli. Just restore it. Yachshir kli kodesh. Pour it back to the kli kodesh, and proceed from there. Nishpach min hakli al haritz b'vasafai. Suppose he did the kabbalah in a kli, and then the blood spilled out of the kli into the floor. Since it was already niskabel in a kli, v'asafai, so now you just collected it off the floor, it is kosher to proceed. However, had it not have been in a kli, just went straight from the animal to the floor, then it would be possible. But in this case, it had already entered the kli, the kabbalah had already been accomplished. Although it spilled out, recollect it, back into the kli and proceed. Now we go back to the unqualified individuals, the psulim, who actually proceeded and did zrika as well. Nos No, he placed the blood of the carbon al gabi kevish. Instead of putting it on the actual mizbeach, he placed it on the ramp, or on the side of the mizbeach on the wall, but not above the base, the foundation of the mizbeach. So all these are improperly located. He placed blood which was meant to be on the lower portion of the mizbeach. He placed it lamalan, on the upper portion, or the opposite. The blood which is meant to be on top, he placed lamata on bottom, or he switched the mizbeachs. The blood which is meant to be on the internal mizbeach and the heichel, he placed bachutz on the external mizbeach and the azara, or vice versa. The one outside, bifnei, he placed inside. In all these situations, no harm was done. Rashi explains one of two ways. Either we say that since it was in the wrong place, so the zrika wasn't really accomplished, and it could be redone. Another explanation would be that since this one's done by a person who's not meant to do zrika, period, he's a apostle. So that's what we say, yesh dam hanefesh. If the kohen can now go and find some more blood back in the animal, just go back, get more blood, and redo the process. Yachzor HaKosher. Yachzor HaKosher v'yikabel. Let the kosher fellow go ahead and be makabel more blood and accomplish a proper zrika. Now, as we noted, the Mishnah began by telling us that even a apostle can do shchita, but it sounds like it's reluctantly. Shachtu. If they did the shchita, it works. The evid but the evid works. L'chatchila, it sounds like initially, you shouldn't be doing the shchita. What's wrong? It would seem that all these individuals are perfectly perfectly fine, perfectly authorized for shchita. In fact, we have a brisa which says that v'shachat. Right, the pasuk says he should do shchita on the carbon. Shchita b'zar ksher, even a non-kohen can do shchita, no problem. Why? Shchita ksher. Shchita is perfectly acceptable, regardless of who does it. Bazarim, a regular Yisrael can do it. Uvanashim, avodim, b'tmeim, afilu gach. Oh yeah, no, kohen, perhaps it needs to be a kohen. Amr's, the answer is like this: where are you coming from? Why would you suggest a kohen is required for shchita? Well, look, the pasuk says only kohanim are involved in karbanis. Michal shenemar, by inference of the pasuk which says v'atu ubanecha itcha tishmu zkunaschem chodvar mizbeach. You and your sons, the kohanim, the Aaron Kohen and his sons, you guard the process involving karbanis and the mizbeach. So perhaps it covers shchita as well, which is unique to kohanim. Yochel, perhaps apa shchita, even shchita is their domain only. Talmud Lemar comes the pasuk and says no. V'shachat es benam bakar l'fnei Hashem. So he did shchita, and then only then does it mention anything about a kohen going forward, starting from Kabbalah onward. V'ikrivu b'nei Aaron kohanim sadam v'zarku sadam. We learn from here Kabbalah ve'elach, only starting from Kabbalah onward, mitzvahs kahuna is incumbent upon the kohanim to do. Limei, this teaches us al hashchita shkshera b'chol adam, that shchita which precedes Kabbalah is perfectly acceptable regardless. Perfectly acceptable regardless of who does it. So it's the hatchila, it's perfectly fine. Why does the Mishnah sound like we're not going to recommend it? The answer is like this. You're right, who adin? The afilu chatchila nam, truthfully, azar, an isha, chatchila, no problem, do shchita. But there's one fellow who should not really be doing shchita l'chatchila for practical reasons. Not because there's something deficient about his shchita, but if he's a tameh and he lingers around, he might inevitably touch the carbon and make it tameh. But you see, one individual on the list is a tameh. So in his case, really, it's not really preferred for him to do it. Why? Gzero concerns Shema Yigu b'bas. They might touch the bas or after the shchita. Now, all the Rashi explains that regarding the shchita itself, we're safe because he's going to use some sort of utensil which is not really susceptible to tumah, a kana. He'll use a reed maybe. So the tumah, the shchita itself, we can get by. But once he shechts the animal, now it's susceptible to tumah, he might touch it. So because the Tameh shouldn't be there, Tana Sheshachta, that's why the Mishnah uses this type of Lashon, which sounds like the whole thing is inevitable, the whole thing is just, B'di'evet. And that's because of the Tameh. But otherwise, Shechita is perfectly acceptable, Lichatchila, by a non-Kohen. Asks the Gemara, V'tameh di'evet shaper dami? You mean to say that b'di'evet, even a tummy is okay? It's not l'chatchila, but if he does it, it's okay? But I mean, we have a kasha from a brayso. The pasuk says, V'samach yodei al rosh ha'olah. So the owner is meant to lean himself on the animal and confess. The pasuk also says right next to it, V'shachat es ben abakar v'nei Hashem. The one pasuk apart. So we connect the act of smicha to the act of shechita. Make a hekesh, a parallel. Ma smicha b'toharim, just like smicha must be accomplished by people who are tohar. How do we know that? More later we'll explain, because it has to be done right, close proximity to the shechita, immediately before the shechita, without any lapse of time. And shechita has to be, the animal has to be inside. So apparently, the person doing smicha must also be inside the azara. Apparently has to be tahar. So we learn just like smicha needs to be done by a fellow who's tahar, likewise shechita must be done by a fellow who's tahar. You can't be standing outside the Beis Hamikdash with this long knife and apparently it doesn't work, even b'di'evet. The answer is midrabanan. Although we had a pasuk, but it's only an asmachta, it's like a hint, but midrabanan, he shouldn't be doing it because of what our concern about touching the basar, but in our Torah it's okay. Asks the Gemara, okay, let's just reanalyze this brayso, connecting shechita to smicha, just like smicha must be done by a tahar. Likewise, how do we know smicha needs to be a tahar? Ma'ishna smicha. Why are you assuming that the smicha must be done by a person who's tahar? Because it has to be done in the azara, the chsiv l'fnei Hashem, because it says that the smicha is l'fnei Hashem, meaning in the Beis Hamikdash. Well, shechita nami yoksiv l'fnei Hashem, the same lashon is applied to shechita as well. So why are we assuming that smicha requires a tahar and not shechita? Well, afshad avid sakan ruchav shachit. Although the animal has to be l'fnei Hashem, but the person doing the shechita doesn't have to be l'fnei Hashem, so you can take this long knife and shech from the outside. So it's not sure that the shechita has to be l'fnei Hashem. Well, smicha nami afshad ma'ayil yodei v'samech. Well, the same could be said about smicha. Stand outside and lean your hands in and do smicha. Because this shita holds bia b'miksa shma bia. Partial entry, even extending your hands into the Beis Hamikdash, is considered entering and is forbidden. So clearly, smicha must be performed by a tahar in the Beis Hamikdash, and that's what triggered the parallel. Just like samach needs to be by a tahar, shachad as well, etc. Rav Chizda Masni Ifcha. Rav Chizda had a different version of this brayso, starting the other way around. V'samach v'shachat. The pasuk states smicha next to shechita to connect it to. The starting point is shechita. Ma shechita b'toharin, af smicha b'toharin. Just like shechita must be performed by a tahar, so according to this shita, it's minat Torah, not just midrabanan because of our concerns. Minat Torah, it must be by a tahar. He disagrees with our Mishnah. Av smicha b'toharin. Likewise, smicha must be done by a tahar. Ask the Gemara, why are we assuming shechita must be performed by a tahar? Ma'ishna shechita l'siv l'fnei Hashem. Because the shechita must be done l'fnei Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash, where only a tahar can enter. Well, smicha nami l'siv l'fnei Hashem. The same l'fnei Hashem is said by smicha as well. So why are we more sure about shechita than smicha? The answer is efshad d'mayil yodav v'samich. Smicha, no problem. I can stand outside and extend my hands inside and do smicha. Well, shechita nami, same with shechita. Efshad da'avid kain sakin arucha v'shachet. He can perform shechita in that manner as well. Stand outside, get this really super long knife and do shechita. The answer is Hamani. The author of this brayso is Shimon HaTimni, who holds that you can't do that. The Sanya, he says you have to actually stand inside when you do shechita. V'shachat es ben amok l'fnei Hashem. So we learned that the animal has to be l'fnei Hashem in the azara, but not the v'lo yashechet l'fnei Hashem, but not the one doing the shechita. He can stand outside. Shimon HaTimni disagrees. He says he says that the hands of the shech have to be beyond the animal, meaning more inside than the animal. In other words, he has to be in the Azara as well. He learns that not only is the animal inside, but the shechet as well. Shechet has been abakar. The one who's doing the shechita on the animal has to be lifnei Hashem, yilfnei Hashem. So shechita is a given. And by extension, smicha must be done by a tahor as well. Okay, so basically we have the Mishnah. Generally, a pasuk can do shechita no problem, because only starting from Kabbalah onward needs a kohen involvement. But shechita is kosher with a zar, isha, eved, a tamei. But the eved it works with chatchila not, because he might end up touching the basar after shechita, according to the brisa we just had, second version. Min Torah, shechita must be done by a tahor only. Okay, so we had this sort of back and forth here regarding the question of partial entry. Amar Ulam Rish Lakish, Tamei shehichnis yad lifnim like. He says you can't just, a Tamei can't put his hands in the Azara. If he does so, he gets malchus. It's almost like entering himself. Shenemar, v'chakodesh le'sika. Pasuk says, a person who's Tamei should not be touching carbon material, meat from a carbon. And the pasuk continues, nor should the person enter the Beis HaMikdash when he's impure. So we connect entering to touching. Makish bil negia. The pasuk here connects entering the mikdash to touching kodesh material. Now, touching material typically involves only partial, contact. Part of the guf touches his hand, his finger. So managia b'mikdash shmonagia, just like partial contact is considered contact. Af bia b'mikdash shmobia, likewise, partial entry is called entry. Hence, bia b'mikdash shmobia, partial entry is forbidden. And the Gemara is assuming that it carries the same consequence as full entry, right? Karis, liability, etc. If so, that triggers a question. He asked Ula a question. We have a brisa, a mitzayra. Okay, a person who was stricken with tzaras. It's his 8th day of his, purification process. He had gone to the mikveh already. He's almost done. He just needs to bring his karbanis. The thing is, a Torah requires that the kohen place the blood of the carbon on his earlobe, on his thumb, on his large toe. Problem is, he can't enter. The karbanos are processed in the Azara. He can't enter the Azara as per yet, because he's still mechusar kippurim. He's lacking his karbanos. He needs that, final step in his purification process to give him the green light to enter the Azara. So what do you do? Typically what they would do is, they would station him at the Sha'ar Niknar, the eastern entry to the Azara. So the door itself was not Kodesh, had a status of Harabayas, which a Mechusar Kippurim can enter. Typically doors were all Kodesh, except for the Sha'ar Niknar, famous Sha'ar Niknar, that was donated by Niknar with a miracle, with it was left out so that the Mitzvah can stand there. So it's as close as you can get to the actual Azara, and he would stick his thumb, his earlobe, into the airspace of the Azara, and the Kohen would place the blood there. He couldn't bring the blood out, because then the blood would become puzzle, disqualified, because it left the Azara domain. So the only way would be to have him stick part of his body in and receive the blood, etc. So that's the standard procedure for the Mitzvah. Problem is, this fellow here encountered an additional tumah. Lo and behold, on the 8th day itself. Mitzvah shachal shmini, shaloli erev Pesach. So it's erev Pesach. The nick of time, it's already his 8th day, he's about to come in, get his karbanos done, he'll be ready for the Seder, perfect. Problem is, V'ral keri b'bayayim, he experienced a keri, in a mission, he got tummy, personal tumah. On that day, certainly he ran to the mikveh quickly to address it, but he hadn't experienced nightfall, which is the completion of that purification process for the keri. So he's technically a tvul yaim. Tvul yaim also has to stay out of the Azara. Not only that, says Rashi, he has to stay out of the Harabayas. He can't even go to Sha'ar Niknar. So what does he do? He's going to forfeit his opportunity to make the Erev Pesach, to make the Pesach for tonight. Amr Chacham said, listen, typically a Tvul Yaim keeps far away. This fellow is different, because he already had that special dispensation. We'll see. Okay, let's see. Even though a standard Tful Yom will not even dare enter the Harabayis, but he's different. Him we let in. We let him into the Harabayis, all the way to Shar Niknar, stand in the doorway, insert your lobe, your finger to get the blood, and this way you can be ready for the Seder. Why? Why are we allowing this? Zen Nichnas, why? Because, on the scale we have the Isser of the Tful Yom entering the Harabayis. On the other side of the equation we have the Korban Pesach. He's going to miss the opportunity to eat his to have his Korban Pesach brought today. So mutav, it's preferred, it's better. In the scheme of things, it's better. Yavai asay sheish beikaris lati mitzvah asay of Korban Pesach, which has that potential karis in it. If one disregards, not in this case because it's circumstantial, but typically a person would willingly disregard bringing Korban Pesach. He's liable to karis. So we see how weighty, how valuable the Korban Pesach is. Let that factor override. Let it push away and override the asay, this asay, which commands us to keep the itame out of Harabayis. Shein Beikaris doesn't really have karis to it. Rashi says, only if itame actually enters the Azara is there karis, but walking around the Harabayis, it's usher, it's forbidden, but there's no karis. So that's a lesser concern than missing the Korban Pesach. So we let him in. Rabbi Yechon Omar, he adds another point. He says you should know Dvar Torah min ha-Torah afilu asay in by. There isn't even an isser of an asay to allow the Tful Yom to enter the Harabayis. Shnamar, we have in the pasuk there. Vayamad Yeshafet b'Kal Yehuda b'Yerushalayim. He got up in Yerushalayim b'Beis Hashem lifnei haChatzar Chadash, before the new courtyard. What does that mean? A new courtyard, new Beis Hamikdash. My Chatzar Chadash. What does that mean? Or Rabbi Yochanan shechichu b'Dvarim. They introduced a new concept regarding the Chatzar, regarding the Harabayis. And they said, Tful Yom, a fellow who's a Tful Yom such as our fellow, don't let him into Machon Leviah, which is where the Leviim encamped around the Mishkan that was in the Midbar, and the Yerushalayim would be the parallel territory for the Machon Leviah would be Harabayis. So it was merely a rabbinic prohibition, and therefore we suspended to allow him to get his Korban Pesach. End of Bryce. Now, back to the point in our Gemara. Ula was the one who said partial entry. So sticking in your finger or your foot is just as bad as fully entering the Azara. So questions like this. Fine, we're allowing the Tful Yom to roam around the Harabayis. That's good for the Harabayis part. But what about the fact that he's actually going to be inserting part of his body into the Azara, which is actual, Beis HaMikdash proper? Machna Shechina. That's kares. For even partial entry, according to what you're saying. If you're going to tell me be a partial entry is considered entry, so how could we allow this mitzvah / Tful Yom? Yeah, on account of the mitzvah, it's allowed. That's standard procedure for mitzvah. Torah allows it. Torah clearly allows it. There's no other way for him to process his korbanos. But this fellow has another layer of tumah upon him. He has the Tful Yom issue. How can he go put his limbs into the Beis Hamikdash? A Tamu enters Beis Hamikdash. There's kares there. So basically, we have a kares factor against the Korban Pesach kares factor. So it's tit for tat. Who's to say which one is more important? Either both factors. On the one hand, entering the Azara while he's tamei. On the other hand, foregoing the Korban Pesach opportunity. There are mitzvahs asay which contain kares. So are we doing away one for the other? Amalei Ula responds, mitunach, from your load, meaning you're bringing me a halacha regarding a mitzvah, right? The Torah clearly made special exception for the mitzvah. We know that. Shana mitzvah is very different. Since he got that green light, that special allowance for partial entry into the Azara, despite being a mitzvah and a Mechusar Kippurim. So once he got the green light, we wave him through. Notwithstanding the fact that he has another tumah issue upon him. Hutar lekiruyois is mutar, despite his tumas kari. So once he got that license, it clears the way. But typically, a person has no business even doing biyah b'mitzvahs. Amar Rav Yosef, Says Rabbi Yosef, let us take it a step further. Because Savar Ula. So basically, Ula will hold. Right? Once you get the license for one thing, you're allowed for everything. So an example is like this. Ruban Zavim. We know that if the community, or most of the community, is Tameh Tumas Meis, on Erev Pesach, you can process the carbon even though they're Tameh. But typically, it's not an allowance for personal tumah, like let's say they're Zav. They can't bring the carbon when they're Tameh. So suppose Ruban Zav, most of the people were Tumas Zav, which doesn't allow for a carbon Pesach. But now so Tamei Mesim Dayan, they attended a funeral, they became Tamei Meis, which would typically allow for bringing a carbon Betuma. So according to Ula, you can proceed. And since they're allowed to process the carbon Pesach, despite the Turmas Meis, that also gives them a license with respect to their Ziva, the Ziva component upon them. Once you get a license, once you get a green light, we wave you through. Abai response to Rav Yosef, how could you compare the two? How do you compare? Tumah ishtaroi, Ziva ishtaroi. The second tumah that arrived, that typically would be allowable, but the first tumah, which, the Ziva which came first, that was the first one on them. Doesn't allow for exceptions. So how could the second tumah sort of undo the effect of the first tumah? Abai continues and he says, let me make a suggestion. Perhaps, maybe you meant, the master, Rebbe, maybe you meant the other way around. That first they became Tamei Meis, which gave them the green light. Once they got the green light, we waved them through regardless, despite the arrival of that new tumah afterwards. Because once they got the license, they're clear. Ruben Tamei Meis. Initially they were Tamei Meis, which allows for bringing a carbon Pesach b'tumah. But then v'nasu zav, then they encountered tumah zav. Here we say hoy v'huchu l'tumas and huchu l'zivas, and since they got the license due to the first tumah, they maintained the heter despite the arrival of the ziva. And he says, right on, you got it. That's what I meant. But still, says the Gemara, still, how do you compare this scenario to the case of the Metzora that became to Ula's case? You can't compare. Because by the case of the Metzora Heteruhu, clearly the Torah gave him a green light. It says on the Torah that he brings the karbanis despite being a Metzora, and clearly he has to stick his hand. It involves inserting part of his body into the Azaros. He got that special heter, special dispensation. Strictly for the Metzora status. Metzora Heteruhu. Hoil Ishtri. So certainly we can understand that once he got the special heter, he proceeds despite, having acquired another layer of tumah. Because once he got that heter, it's a license. So it's not revoked despite having additional concerns. But when a community becomes tumah dechuyehi, there's no dispensation. It's not like it's a license to do the carbon betumah. It's dechuyehi. We sort of look away. We push away the tumah concern. We suspend it. So you can certainly understand that if it's merely a dichui, laha itchay, laha lo itchay, we only push it away in as much as we're dealing with tumas meis. But laha, regarding tumas ziva, we can't push it away. We can't ignore it. If you get a green light, if you got a license, so you maintain it despite additional, but it's not a license. We push it away. Hashem looks away. You can bring the carbon despite the tumah. It overrides the tumah concern. But if there's too much going on, you can't. Rabbi responded, actually, I would say the other way around. Just the opposite. If I'm a stavra, I think logic dictates just the opposite. Metzora heteru. If anything, the metzora who gets a license, an actual green light to proceed, and insert his earlobes, etc. You can certainly explain and understand that the heter applies strictly for the metzora element that he has. The license was not granted for other tumah concerns. As opposed to the case of the community being tamei, tuma dechuyi. Over there, it's suspended, it's pushed away. The tumah is ignored. So once you're ignoring it, once you're looking away, who cares if it's for this reason, for that reason? Mali chad dechuyi, whether it's looking away from one issue, mali shtei dechuyos, or you're pushing away two issues. Once you're pushing it away and ignoring it, you can fully understand that the additional tumah would not make any difference. So if anything, Rava says this case is easier to understand than the case of the mitzvah. But in any case, as going chalal, apparently the Tavai Svirlu, both Abai and Rava hold tumah dechuyi b'tzibur. The whole discussion in Mesechus Yuma, whether tumah is hutra b'tzibur or dechuyi b'tzibur. Rashi here explains if it's hutra b'tzibur, you don't need the tzitz to override it, to atone for it. It's okay. Tumah dechuyi requires the tzitz to assist it along and to make it work. The Gemara there speaks about, let's say you have an alternative, you can find kahan derator. So if it's a heter, so you don't have to look for kahanim to. But if it's dechuya, so it's sort of like a reluctant type of heter. In which case, if you have an alternative, you meant to, seek one. But in any case, based on Abai Rava's discussion, it would seem like they hold clearly that tumah is really dechuya b'tzibur. That's it's the based on the factors that they're presenting and the terminology that they're employing. Okay, so just to recap today's daf. Psula makasha for shchita. We learn from the pasuk only kabbalah ve'elach mitzvahs kuhuna. A tamei lechatchila should not, because of a gzera that he might touch, according to one sheet, even the Diabeti's puzzle. Ulaz machadash bia b'mikzah shema bia. But we do have some exceptions. For instance, a mitzvah who the Torah clearly dictates and instructs to do this on his 8th day. And the chiddush of the Gemara was that even if he becomes a tful yom as well, once he's mutter for this, he's mutter for that. And by extension, the Gemara is suggesting that even by the tumah dechuyi b'tzibur, perhaps you can apply the same concept. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.